Hello everybody, welcome to Kids Church Online. My name is Courtney and I'm so glad that you could join me for the first week of Blueprints. It is gonna be so fun as we talk about blueprints and as we talk about God's plan. So let's start by singing a worship song together. Stand up on your feet and we will sing a song all together.
I like to think about the goodness of the Lord. He gives me everything I need and so much more. So I just want to lift my hands and say that I love Him. I just want to lift my heart in praise. And I want to be thankful. I want to be grateful. I want to remember everything that the Lord has done. I want to be thankful. I want to be grateful. I want to be. I like to think about the goodness of the Lord. He gives me everything I need and so much more. So I just want to lift my hands and say that I love Him. I just want to lift my heart in praise. And I want to be thankful. I want to be grateful. I want to remember everything that the Lord has done. I want to be thankful. I want to be grateful. I want to be thankful. I want to be grateful. I want to remember everything that the Lord has done. I want to be thankful. I want to be grateful. I want to be
Great job, guys. You can find a seat. Now, let's start talking about blueprints. Does anyone know what blueprints are? Blueprints are a plan. How many of you have ever made a plan before? I have. A plan for blueprints is when you plan to build something. Blueprints are a picture of something you want to build, something you want to make, or something that's already built. Your house that you live in, before you lived there, they made a blueprint to build it. If you live in an apartment, then the blueprint would look different. If you live in a townhouse, the blueprint would look different. If you live in a house, the blueprint would look different. If you live somewhere else, the blueprint would be different. And you know why? Because the thing that they built looks different. Now, a blueprint is just a piece of paper, and it's like an instructions manual. It tells them what needs to go into the house to make it look like a house. It's very interesting to look at blueprints and see how different they look, but they are all a plan. Now, this month, we are talking about God's plan. God has a plan for all of our lives, and it's like a blueprint. He has a plan, and He can see the whole thing. He can see our whole lives. He knows what you're going to do when you're older. He knows what you're going to look like, where you're going to work, where you're going to go to school and college and university if you're going to go. God knows all of that stuff, and we don't even know that yet because He has the huge blueprint. He has the big plan that He can see. Now, we are learning a little bit more about God's plan, and part of God's plan that started a long time ago with Jesus. We are going to hear about that. Let's start by learning our big idea for today. And our big idea is important because it tells us something very important about God's plan. Okay, follow along with me. We're going to point to the sky, say God's, and then make a little blueprint with your hands, plan, okay? So this is like a book or a piece of paper that shows God his whole plan, okay? So we're going to point up. God's plans are perfect. So you're going to give me a double thumbs up. They're perfect. Try it again. God's plans are perfect. Now, part of God's plan was Jesus coming to earth. And a big part of God's plan was Jesus dying on the cross for our sins. Now, we're going to hear about that, but today we are going to hear about when Jesus was alive on earth. And we are going to hear from someone who we have grown to know the last month named Callie. Callie is going to talk to us about blueprints and about our story for today. So let's turn it over to Callie and hear what she has to say about blueprints.
Hey friends! I was watching this really cool video about construction and I learned so many new things. Do you know what these vehicles are called? This one is called a bulldozer. It pushes dirt and rocks around. What about this one? This is a crane. It's really tall and it helps lift and move things around. Okay, last one. This is called an excavator. Excavators are used for digging. I thought to myself, I really wouldn't mind being a builder, but I love to sing too. So I wouldn't mind being a singer also. They have the coolest jobs. Singers, if you're good, can travel the world singing and tour with famous people. They also get lots of gifts and flowers and fans. Or what about the president? I kind of think I could be a great one. I can make the world a better, more loving place, or I could be the person who decides what the national holidays are. I'd really like to have more days where we celebrate things like donuts and ice cream. There are so many things we can do and become. How about you? What do you want to learn about while you're growing up? Because I really want to learn about a lot of different things. I have an idea. Let me call my buddy Gavin.
Oh, hey, Callie.
Hey, Gavin. What are you up to?
I'm playing video games with my little brother. How about you?
I'm here trying to decide what I want to learn first, to get ready for growing up and stuff.
You do love to act. Maybe you can be an actress.
Maybe. I'm so confused. What do you want to do when you grow up?
I think I want to be an astronaut.
Oh, wow. That's so interesting. Maybe I can learn about space with you. How do you think we need to plan to become astronauts? There must be some steps on the internet somewhere.
Oh, but I'm not sure. I was getting ready to read a Bible story. Maybe it would give us some clues about where to start. My Grammy always told me the Bible has the greatest plans in it.
Sounds good to me. Let's hear it.
It's time for our Bible story. Today we will learn about a festival that the Jewish people held to celebrate the time when they were freed from being held captives as slaves and forced to work for the Egyptians. It's called Passover.
How long were they captive?
It probably lasted for about 400 years. So someone could have lived a whole life and never been free to choose what they would do with their life. Rescue was a big deal to them. They celebrated how God created a plan for their freedom and rescued them from being stuck in Egypt.
So they probably know about following a plan.
They sure do. They didn't always like the plan, and they didn't always follow it either. But when they did, when they trusted God with the plans that promised their freedom, they found a way out.
They probably dance and have lots of fun.
You bet they do. They celebrated then, and they celebrated now. When Jesus was celebrating Passover, Jesus noticed some of the ways that the people had started to ignore God's plan again. Sometimes it upset him to see this happening. During one Passover, Jesus was there and noticed how things in the temple didn't match God's plans.
Oh no! How did they get off track?
There are people in the temple courts selling animals that people could use as offerings. Jesus was so upset because people were being greedy and trying to make money off of people who were coming to the temple to worship.
Yikes, what did Jesus do?
Jesus flipped over the tables in the temple courts and told the people to leave. He even drove the animals away.
Oh wow, Jesus was angry.
The people were wondering what right Jesus had to do this. Jesus showed that he was sent by God by saying that if they destroyed the temple, he would rebuild it in 3 days.
All by himself in 3 days?
Jesus was actually talking about himself and the bigger and better plans God had for them. That one day, Jesus would die and after 3 days come back to life so that God's plans could work for everyone to be reconnected and forgiven.
That sounds like a good plan.
Jesus knew the plan all along, and it was a much better plan than we could have created on our own. Like the blueprints a builder uses to manage the construction of something new, God has plans too.
Hi, Callie. That story was really amazing.
It really was. I learned a lot too.
You tell me what you learned first, and I'll tell you what I learned.
Okay, I learned that maybe I don't need to rush to decide on what I want to do when I'm grown up. Your turn.
I learned that God had a good plan for the people of Israel, and God has a good blueprint for us too. Every day is a new chance to look for clues and discover God's plan.
Wow, Gavin, you are smart and really wise. Talk later?
Sounds great. Bye, Callie.
That was an amazing story, right, friends? I think it's best for me to keep growing, and when the time is right, God will tell me what to do, because God's plans are perfect, and I can always build on what I'm learning. I'll still dream of doing amazing things, like a president or even a lawyer maybe, but hey, I'm still young, and you are too, friends. Catch you next time. Gotta go play with my friends outside. Thanks for watching and growing with me. Peace out.
Thank you, Callie, for that story. It was great to hear from you and to hear the story about Jesus in the temple. Now, let's talk about that story just a little bit before we move on. In our story today, Jesus was in the temple to celebrate Passover. Passover was a special holiday when they would remember how God helped them, because God helps us all the time. Now, Jesus was really upset. He was super angry, and he had really big emotions that day. He was so angry that he flipped the tables in the temple. Have you ever been so angry that you wanted to flip a table or maybe hit a wall or throw something? That is a lot of emotions that Jesus was feeling. Now, he was really upset. And why was he so mad? Do you remember? Yeah, he was really upset because people were selling stuff in the temple. Now, this made Jesus angry for a couple reasons. First, they were being a little bit selfish. They were taking advantage of the church, and they were taking advantage of the people there. They were collecting money for themselves. Plus, they weren't following God's plan very well. They weren't listening to God. They didn't think that this holiday to celebrate God was important enough, and they wanted to be selfish and take money for themselves. So they weren't focusing on God, and it made Jesus really upset. So angry that he flipped their tables. Now, after that, Jesus said something really important to his disciples. He was talking about God tearing down the temple. Now, the temple was huge. It was bigger than our church. It was so big that it was like the size of a town. And they thought, how could God tear down a whole temple and rebuild it in 3 days? That makes no sense. Now, of course, God could do that. But that's not really what he meant, was it? Jesus was talking about how he would die and rise in 3 days. Now, the reason he said that is because God planned to use Jesus to change the church, that the temple would look different, that people wouldn't need to go to church to meet God, that God would be with them everywhere, not just in the most holy place in the temple. Now, this was special, and the disciples realized later that that's what Jesus meant, that Jesus was going to die and rise again. And they realized that after it happened, after Jesus died and rose again, they were like, I remember Jesus talking about that. So this story reminds us not only about Jesus getting angry, because Jesus had a good reason to get angry. These people weren't respecting God. But it also reminds us that Jesus was part of God's plan. That God had a plan for Jesus to die and rise again, and that it would change how people related to God. It would change the way that people knew God and how they spent time with him. And at the time, the disciples had no idea what Jesus was talking about. But as the plan started to take place, they realized that God had an amazing plan. So, let's do our big idea one more time to remember what we are learning today about God's plan. Let's point up to the sky. We say, God's plans are perfect. Say it again with me. God's plans are perfect. Good job. We have a new memory verse this month that we need to learn right now. All right? Okay, so let's follow along and practice the actions for this verse. All right, we're going to start by touching our head. It says, "For I know the plans I have for you." Try it again. Touch your head. "For I know the plans I have for you." Good. Now, who's saying this? God is saying this. God knows the plans. So we're going to put our hands to our mouth like we're saying it really loud. And we're going to say, "Declares the Lord," because God says it. All right? Let's try it again. "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord." Good job. Now the next part says plans to prosper you. So it's like God is lifting us up. He's lifting us up. He's prospering us. He's giving us good things. All right? So we're going to say plans to prosper you. Then it says, and not to harm you. So we're going to fall like we're hurt. Maybe grab your arm like you hurt your arm. Grab your other arm. All right? Let's try it again. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Good job. And then at the end we say plans to give you hope and a future. Good things. Hope and a future are great things. And it comes from Jeremiah 29:11. Let's try it all together from the beginning. Start by touching your head. "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future." Jeremiah 29:11. Good job. All right, let's bow our heads and pray. And then we are going to do another worship song. So let's fold our hands and close our eyes so we're not distracted. And let's pray. God, thank you for this day. I thank you for all these kids. I thank you so much that you love us, that you have a plan for our life, that you had a plan for Jesus' life, and that you always take care of us. I pray you keep us safe this week, that you keep us healthy, that we have a good week at school and at home. And I pray that you give us a great week next week so that we can see each other on Sunday again. In your name, everyone said, amen. All right, let's do another worship song. So stand up on your feet, get some wiggles back in you and out of you, and we will sing a song.
Come on now, join with me, everybody sing. I'm gonna lift my voice to glorify my King. He is a mighty God and worthy of our praise. We give him everything, he's good in every way. Come on now, join with me, everybody sing. I'm gonna lift my voice to glorify my King. He is a mighty God and worthy of our praise. We give him everything, he's good in every way.
He is always there for us.
He's good in every way.
Pouring out his awesome love.
He's good in every way.
He fills us up with peace and joy.
He's good in every way.
He gives us all we need and more.
He's good in every way.
Come on now, join, yeah.
Join with me, everybody sing. I'm gonna lift my voice to glorify my King. He is a mighty God and worthy of our praise. We give him everything, he's good in every way.
He is always there for us.
He's good in every way.
Pouring out his awesome love.
He's good in every way.
He fills us up with peace and joy.
He's good in every way.
He gives us all we need and more.
He's good in every way.
Come on now, join with
Come
me.
on now, join with me, everybody sing. I'm gonna lift my voice to glorify my King. He is a mighty God and worthy of our praise. We give him everything, he's good in every way. Come on now, join with me, everybody sing.
Everybody sing.
I'm gonna lift my voice to glorify my King. He is a mighty God and worthy of our praise. We give him everything, he's good in every way. He's good in every way. He's good in every way.
Thank you guys so much for coming to Kids Church Online. If you have a takeout church box, you can pull out your week 1 supplies for this week and get started on that. Otherwise, we will see you next week. I hope you guys have an